Before Christmas became a celebration of lights, gifts, and kindness, it was something very different. It was a season of fear. In the dark winters of Central Europe, long before shopping malls and holiday songs, communities believed that something walked the streets during December nights, something with horns, chains, and burning eyes. Its name was Krampus. While St. Nicholas was known for rewarding obedient children, Krampus existed for the opposite reason. He was not a myth meant to entertain, he was a warning. According to Alpine folklore, especially in regions that are now Austria, Germany, and parts of northern Italy, Krampus was described as a half-goat, half-demon creature. He carried chains that rattled in the darkness, bells that announced his presence, and bundles of birch sticks used to punish children who had misbehaved during the year. But the stories went further than punishment. In some versions of the legend, Krampus did not just scare children, he dragged them away, stuffed them into sacks, took them into the mountains, and they were never seen again. These tales were told deliberately, not quietly, not gently. Parents, elders, and priests used them as tools to enforce obedience. In a time without police, psychology, or formal education, fear was control. Winter made everything worse. The days were short, food was scarce, death was close. Children already lived surrounded by danger, illness, and hunger. Krampus became the physical embodiment of everything that could go wrong if rules were broken. This was not Santa Claus watching from the North Pole. This was something far older, far darker. Krampus was part of a pre-Christian belief system tied to nature, chaos, and survival. When Christianity spread through Europe, many of these beliefs did not disappear. They were absorbed, rebranded, reshaped. St. Nicholas represented order, reward, and moral behavior. Krampus represented consequence. Good cop, bad cop. Together, they formed a system that worked remarkably well. Behave and you are rewarded. Disobey and something unspeakable comes for you in the night. Even as Christianity tried to suppress pagan rituals, Krampus refused to vanish. Instead, he adapted. His image changed slightly over centuries, but the core remained the same: fear. And that fear survived longer than anyone expected. By the 19th century, Krampus was no longer just a story told at bedtime. He had become a public figure. In many Alpine towns, people began to dress as Krampus during early December in events that would later be known as Krampusnacht. Men wore heavy wooden masks carved with grotesque faces, horns stretched upward, fur covered their bodies, chains dragged along the streets. They did not hide. They marched openly through villages, ringing bells, chasing people, especially children. Alcohol flowed. Violence was not uncommon. Some parades ended with injuries. Others ended with fear turning into chaos. And yet, these events were accepted, even encouraged. Authorities tolerated them because they reinforced social order. Churches allowed them because they could be framed as moral lessons. Communities embraced them because they were tradition. Fear had become entertainment. By the early 20th century, postcards featuring Krampus were sold across Europe. Some showed him whipping children, others showed him carrying them away. These images were mailed casually, even humorously, during the Christmas season. This was not hidden folklore, it was mainstream. But something changed. As Europe modernized, the idea of using terror as a parenting tool became uncomfortable. Psychology emerged, child protection laws appeared, the world began to question traditions that relied on fear and trauma. Krampus became a problem. During the 1930s, authoritarian regimes attempted to ban Krampus celebrations, labeling them as immoral or dangerous. For a time, the creature faded into the background, but folklore rarely dies. In the late 20th century, Krampus returned, not as a tool of discipline, but as spectacle. Krampusnacht festivals re-emerged, bigger and louder than before. Tourists arrived, cameras followed. What was once a method of control became a performance. Yet the core image did not soften. Krampus is still terrifying, and that is precisely why he thrives in modern culture. In a world where Christmas is overwhelmingly sanitized, Krampus represents the shadow side of tradition, the reminder that beneath joy and generosity, there is history filled with fear, power, and control. People are drawn to him not despite the darkness, but because of it. Krampus exposes an uncomfortable truth. Many traditions we consider harmless were built on enforcing obedience, not spreading joy. And that realization makes people uneasy. Today, Krampus exists in movies, festivals, merchandise, and viral videos. He is treated as a curiosity, a novelty, a dark twist on Christmas. But reducing him to a costume misses the point. Krampus is not just a monster, he is a symbol. He represents how societies have historically shaped behavior through fear, how morality was enforced not by explanation, but by threat, how children were taught obedience not through understanding, but through terror. And this was not unique to Europe. Every culture has its own version of Krampus, different names, different faces, same purpose. Fear works. That is why it was used. The modern Santa Claus represents unconditional reward. Krampus represents conditional existence. Behave or you suffer. When people say Christmas didn't always mean kindness, they are not exaggerating. It meant survival, control, order, and Krampus was part of that system. The reason his story resonates today is because we still recognize the mechanism. We still live under systems that reward conformity and punish deviation. The tools have changed, the fear has changed, but the structure remains. Krampus simply wore it openly, and perhaps that is why he is so disturbing. He doesn't hide behind smiles or wrapping paper. He doesn't pretend to be gentle. He is honest about what he represents. Fear as discipline, fear as tradition, fear as control. So when people celebrate Krampus today, consciously or not, they are engaging with a deeper question. Do we reject the darkness of our traditions, or do we acknowledge it? Because understanding where these stories come from forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about how societies functioned and sometimes how they still do. Krampus reminds us that Christmas was not always safe, not always warm, not always kind, and that beneath every celebration there is history. Because the real story is never on the surface, it's under the surface.